there, amigos. For this interview episode with Zachariah Moreno, the CEO of Squadcast, we wanted to do something out of the ordinary, so we decided to officially make him our homie and take him on a journey he'd never forget.
Hey, Zach, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to chat with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephen. Really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you, Veronica, and your audience. It's really cool work you're doing.
Yeah, and we're so excited to be talking with you. We're huge fans of Squadcast. We use it for all our remote interviews, and it's just a wonderful solution for podcasters. So we just wanted to chat with you about Squadcast and introduce it and you to our listeners. Also, if you have any tips for how we can get the most out of using Squadcast. But first, I was wondering if you could kind of set the stage for the world of remote recording options out there like Skype or something like that, and tell us how Squadcast is different.
Yeah, I think, your listeners can tell when you record a phone call or when you record on Skype or something to that effect. Really, to quote Chris Curran with the Podcast Engineering School, lower quality audio really just serves as a distraction for your listeners. Instead of thinking about your message that you want them to take away, they're thinking subtly about, why does this one person sound much worse than the other person? A lot of times with a professional podcaster recording over something like Skype or another VoIP solution, they will sound amazing because they're recording themselves locally into software or into their Mix Pre 6 or something with great preamps, and the podcaster will sound great, but their remote guest will sound much lower quality. When you're recording remotely over the VoIP connection, the network compresses that audio and does all kinds of things to it, and it's not even a consistent level of quality 1 minute to the next. What they're trying to do is make sure that you stay connected to the person you're speaking with, and they will sacrifice the quality of that video or audio conversation to preserve that connection no matter what. And podcasters who are focused on creating content for listeners after the fact, they don't want to make that sacrifice. They have a different set of things that they're trying to optimize for, whereas Skype is trying to keep you connected. You are wanting a constant quality for everybody, not just yourself. And what we do is a little bit different than that, is very different than that, I should say. Because we have a focus on creating a workflow and tools for podcasters, we have the same interests and can prioritize the quality of your audio. And we do that for everybody in the conversation. And we don't sacrifice the host versus the guest quality. Everybody is a constant quality, constant gain levels. And what we're trying to achieve is to fool your listener into believing that you're in the same location, that you're in the same studio recording together in person. It should be completely transparent to them that your guest is not in the same room as you. Mm-hmm. And we do that by recording everybody locally on their machine before the audio travels over the network. We capture it, and then every once in a while we push that audio up to our cloud, so it's already been recorded, and then it travels over the network. And then whenever you're done, we get that audio and create a WAV file for everybody who was in the conversation.
Yeah, and that's so helpful. Before I was introduced to Squadcast, I was experimenting with encouraging my guests to record themselves onto their computer. I think that's called a double ender.
Yeah, the double ender. That's exactly what our research showed is the best way to do it, and that's how radio stations do it. And people used to do that and talk on the phone and record themselves to tape and then put it in the mail and send it to the studio, and then they would chop it together.
Yeah.
And this is a much more modern version of what we call a multi-ender. So
a multi-ender.
Yeah, because we can support up to 4 people recording together at a time. So you can record 4 people simultaneously having a real-time conversation, 2 separate tracks, and then we're uploading that as we go. We call that progressively uploading.
Huh, how cool. Thanks for the quick rundown of Squadcast. Now, I was wondering if you might have any tips for how we can encourage our guests to help us get the best audio we can get with Squadcast. Is there something we can do in the booking stage? Maybe a preliminary email or something? How can we make sure they use good recording techniques without offending them or asking them to do too much?
in that preparation email, I think the best one, it's really great that you're already doing that and trying to optimize it. So I think some people aren't even doing that, like, preparing their guests. They may let them know the time and date and link to join you in the session, but that is a really great opportunity to help prepare your guest for recording audio, because a lot of times, like you're saying, they're not familiar with that, how to preserve the quality and do what they can. So Liz Covart with Ben Franklin's World is one of our hosts and records all of her remote interviews on Squadcast. And I think her email is probably the best that I've seen. And she's written it in a way that's a little bit funny, so that way you're not questioning people's experience with audio or anything like that. She sends her guest a microphone headset combo in the mail in advance, which is an interesting thing that you can help get your guest quality even higher than what we can do with Squadcast. Liz takes that extra step of sending a microphone in advance and then including postage, so that way they can send it back to her. And I believe she has a Sennheiser preference, because that's similar to what she's using. So she's going to a deeper level than most people would to really get that quality very high. Mm-hmm. But I do think that's a fairly cheap thing to do. It makes your guests feel much more like they're in a podcast, and it takes care of the mic technique concern, because they essentially have a microphone strapped to the side of their face that's the right distance away from their mouth. Mm-hmm. They can move their head around, which is a common thing that guests do, not thinking about the proximity to the microphone impacting the gain of their voice or things like that. So she found that the headset was a good way to go, and I do think that rings true across all of our hosts. Harry Duran with Podcast Junkies does exactly the same thing, and those are like $20 for like one of those Sennheiser or Logitech. A bunch of companies make them. Beyond that, so that takes care of the mic technique. If you're able to send your guest a microphone, and I will do a pro tip there, and also for podcasters that want to upgrade their microphone, I highly recommend checking out MicRentals.com. My good friend Steven Aruda is the co-founder and CEO there, and they make that process turnkey. You can go to their website and plug in your guest address. They'll ship it out. It's a 2-day rental, and it comes pre-packaged to sending it back to Mic Rentals. And that is the same experience from the guest perspective. All they have to do is get it out of the box and plug it into USB, click the link for Squadcast, and they're there talking to you. And they have a ton of options for microphones, and that's why I also recommend it for podcasters. We all love hardware and love microphones, right? Yeah. So it's a great way to test out high-end microphones before you drop the coin on it. And that way you can hear samples in your environment, with your voice, and then make an informed purchase decision on that microphone if you like it.
Wow, those are some great tips. Sending a headset, finding a nice way of encouraging some mic techniques, and then MicRental.com. That sounds great. I'm going to check them out for sure. And Zach, I know you're a busy man. I just really appreciate you coming by today, and thank you so much for helping out these little pod skis get their shows off the ground and get going and get improving their audio quality.
Thank you, Stephen. I really appreciate the opportunity. Love the work you're doing with Pod Sound School, and really grateful for the opportunity to connect with you, Veronica, and your audience, and help, broaden the access that podcasters have to quality audio for their remote interviews.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Bye, Zach.
Pod Show.